Hi guys, I'm Konark Wadhwa, founder at Reimagined Studio. Right now we're in the final stages of executing one of the first luxury interiors projects in My Home Nishada. The home is still under execution. We are about a week away from completion, and over the last several months we have spent countless hours planning, coordinating and building inside what is probably one of the Hyderabad's most talked about residential developments today. And what's interesting is that even before the project is fully complete, Nishada has already taught us a lot, not just about interiors, but about how luxury living in Hyderabad is changing. Because honestly, I don't think projects like Nishada are simply bigger apartments. I think they are introducing an entirely new category of home. When we started doing interiors almost 10 years ago, most apartments in Hyderabad were between 1500 and 2500 SFT. If you understood one project, you more or less understood the next one. Today we are working on a 4000 plus square foot apartment in Nishada, and it's made me realize that luxury apartments are becoming an entirely different design challenge. The first thing we've learned is that bigger homes do not actually create more freedom, they create more decisions. A lot of people dream about having a larger apartment, and understandably so. More space sounds amazing, but what nobody talks about is what happens after you get the space. Suddenly every room needs a purpose, every corner needs intention, every transition between spaces matters. You start asking questions that simply do not exist in smaller apartments. Should this be a formal living room or a family lounge? Do we really need two dining spaces? Will this room actually get used every day? How often will guests use this area? How do the kids interact with the home? How does the family move through the space? The interesting thing is that the larger the home gets, the more important planning becomes. Not because you're trying to fit things in, but because you're trying to make sure the home doesn't feel empty, disconnected or underutilized. The second thing Nishada has taught us is that budget is really the biggest challenge. Clarity is. And honestly, this was one of the most interesting observations throughout the project. Most homeowners buying homes in developments like Nishada are capable of creating beautiful spaces. The challenge isn't whether they can afford something. The challenge is whether they have thought deeply about how they actually want to live. Because very often people ask for things they have seen, not things they'll use. Someone wants a home office because everybody has one, and 6 months later they're working from the dining table. Someone wants a formal living room because it looks luxurious. Then nobody enters the room except during festivals. Someone wants an enormous walk-in wardrobe, but what they actually needed was better everyday storage. What we have realized is that some of the most important conversations in a project aren't about materials. They're about the behavior, they're about habits, they're about understanding how a family actually lives. Because good design is not about creating impressive spaces, it's about creating useful spaces, and those are not always the same thing. The third thing that we've learned is something nobody prepares you for when designing a large luxury apartment. Scale. Scale changes everything. Trust me. A sofa that feels massive in a normal apartment suddenly looks undersized. A chandelier that looked dramatic in a showroom suddenly disappears. Artwork that looked large on paper suddenly feels too small for the wall. A rug that felt generous suddenly feels inadequate. One of the biggest mistakes people make in large homes is assuming that luxury comes from expensive products. What we have realized is that luxury often comes from proportion. When the furniture is the right size, when the lighting is the right size, when the room feels balanced, the home immediately feels more premium. Even if the materials themselves are relatively simple, that's why some homes feel expensive without looking flashy. Because everything is proportioned correctly. One thing that is becoming increasingly clear as this home comes together is that woodwork is not what people remember. Now do not get me wrong, execution matters, quality matters, planning matters. They are all incredibly important, but every week as new layers are getting added to this project, we are reminded that a home is much more than wardrobes and ceilings. People don't experience homes through individual components, they experience them as a whole. The atmosphere, the warmth, the calmness, the lighting, the feeling. And that's why we've always believed that a project isn't finished when the woodwork is complete. In many ways, that's where the second half begins. Because after the wardrobes and kitchens come the furniture, the rugs, the curtains, the artwork, the styling, the lighting layers, the textures. All the things that quietly influence how a home feels, and that's exactly why we are excited about sharing this finished project soon. Because right now we are at the stage where the home is beginning to transform from a construction site into an actual living environment. And that's always one of the most satisfying parts of the process. The final thing Nishada has reinforced for us is that Hyderabad is changing. The city is entering a completely different phase of residential living. The apartments are getting larger, the expectations are getting higher, the homeowners are becoming more informed. People travel more, they have experienced great hotels, they have seen beautiful homes around the world, and because of that, they are asking better questions. They are no longer asking what laminate should be used, they are asking how will this age? Will this still feel relevant 5 years from now? Will this improve our everyday life? And honestly, I think those are much better conversations because those are the conversations that create better homes. When I look at Nishada, I do not just see another apartment project. I think it's giving us a glimpse into where Hyderabad is heading. Larger homes, more beautiful planning, greater focus on lifestyle, and a shift away from simply designing spaces towards designing experiences. And that's probably the biggest thing Nishada has taught us so far. Luxury living in Hyderabad is evolving. And for us as designers, that's incredibly exciting because we are no longer just designing rooms, we're helping shape how families will live inside those homes for the next 10 or 15 years. Our Nishada project is still about a week away from completion, and we are looking forward to sharing the final reveal, the design decisions, the lessons learned, and everything that went into creating it. But even before completion, the journey itself has already been fascinating. And if you are a Nishada homeowner watching this, hopefully some of these observations help you think about your own home a little differently. We'll see you soon in the finished project.